everybody, and welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. Of course, a huge happy new year to you all. I can't believe it's 11 days into January, and this is the first podcast we're bringing you. It's been a little bit crazy. Christmas flew by. Both Ashley and I have been a bit poorly, but I think most of the UK have been poorly. So if you're not feeling well, I hope you feel better soon. But we're back. We're back, we're ready, and we're raring to go. You'll be happy to know that our resolution for this year is to bring you more podcast content. And we're going to really commit to bringing you the high value insights into all things marketing for L&D that you need. But I know a lot of people are talking right now about what the trends are for 2023. What kind of things should we be doing as L&Ders in the next 12 months? And marketing has come up in a lot of those conversations. And of course, that delights me. I'm so happy that people are finally talking about marketing for learning in the way it should be spoken about. But that also means that I know a lot of L&Ders will have just found out about this kind of thing that we've been doing. This little marketing for learning thing. And you might have stumbled across the podcast. And there's quite a few episodes, isn't there? And we've had over 10,000 listens now to our podcast. So I know that L&Ders have found this podcast super, super useful. You might, like me, be absolutely okay with binge listening to podcasts. If I find something I like, I'll sit and listen to it for days on end. But for those of you that have a life, I understand you might not be able to go back and listen to all of our podcasts. So in this episode, I'm going to give you a roundup of the top 5 takeaways from our most listened to podcasts of 2022. So let's get started. The first top takeaway is from our first proper podcast episode, and it's all about L&D's awareness problem. Because if you haven't realised it by now, this is your wake-up call. You might think you have an engagement problem, but the chances are you've also got an awareness problem. Because how can somebody engage with something if they haven't got a clue it exists? If I don't know there is, I don't know, let me think of an example. A new fizzy drink on the market, for example. I can't drink it if I don't know it exists. Until I know it's there, I can't drink it. An example I gave at a seminar that I spoke at a few months ago. I am addicted right now to Starbucks peach iced tea. And I genuinely now some days wake up and I'm like, really fancy. I could really do with a peach iced tea. But that's only happened within the last 6 months or so. And that's because before that 6 months, I didn't know that peach iced tea existed and I didn't know I liked it. So if your audience, your learners, your employees, your colleagues, if they don't know that there is a learning offering within the organisation that they can get involved with, how on earth are they meant to engage with it? And you're probably thinking, yeah, but everyone knows it exists because I sent out an email. If I asked you what the third email you received last week was, you probably couldn't tell me, could you? That is a level of attention your people are giving to your emails. One email, one time is not going to cut the mustard. So the first top tip from our podcast in 2022 is to be aware of your awareness problem. You need to make sure you're grabbing attention with your communications. To grab attention, raise awareness, and then you can sort out your engagement problem. The second top takeaway from our podcast in 2022 is about a marketing mindset. It's time, L&Ders. It's time to start thinking like a marketer. But what does that mean? I don't mean I want you to go out and start thinking you're a marketer and, I don't know, putting adverts on billboards and stuff like that. That's not what I mean. Having a marketing mindset is very different. And there is one key thing about a marketing mindset is that we put the audience first. The audience are front and center of everything we do. And then we're really curious. We ask a lot of questions. We're kind of annoying. And I'm okay with that. Ask why. Ask why on behalf of your clients, because that's what your learners are. They're your clients, they're your audience. Why should they care? Ask that question and answer it, but be curious. Put them first and make sure you're delivering something that just makes sense to your target audience. If you're saying to your target audience, OMG, there's a new data protection course available. Data protection is not even a thing anymore, is it? But you get my gist. Nobody's going to jump out of bed in the morning and be like, oh, data protection, I must take this course. No, they're not. They're not. Nobody is. But if you explain to them why it's relevant for them, how it will help them at work, how it will help them progress, I don't know, do things a little bit quicker. I don't know. I'm not a data protection expert. I don't know why I use that example. But if you tell them the why, you might get somewhere into being on their radar and getting them moving. And that's what we want after all, isn't it? We want to make people aware of our content. We want them to engage with our content. Ultimately, we want them to keep coming back to us. The third top tip from our most listened to 2022 podcast is asking the what's in it for me question. I just mentioned this in the marketing mindset. What's in it for me is honestly the single most important question a marketer could ask. When you're asking the what's in it for me question, you're not asking it from your point of view. You're asking it from your audience's point of view. So for you guys, it will be your learners. If you send out an email saying there's a new course in the LMS, it will take you 50 minutes to complete. It is an e-learning course, and there is some supplementary PDFs to go with it. Thank you. Signed off, L&D team. Read that email back and ask why. Why does anybody care? Honestly, why do they care that there's a new course in the LMS? We do the same thing when we get a new platform. If you've just bought an LXP, for example, and you've sent out an email, we've got a new LXP. Why do they care? They're not going to make the inferences that you're probably making in your head right now. You're probably going, well, they care because I'm giving them better learning experiences, or they care about X course because of Y. Tell them. Tell them what is in it for them. And it'll be a game changer to your communications about your L&D. I promise. Tip number 4 from our most listened to podcasts of last year. It's all about learning campaigns. Learning campaigns are a great way to unify your message for your learning. You're creating a consistent message to push out to your target audience over a period of time. L&D are the worst at sending one email one time and expecting results. Learning campaigns stop you doing that. Learning campaigns span a number of months normally. I'd normally say 3 months minimum. They use a number of channels. You're not just sending an email. You're not just putting a post up on your internet. You're doing both. And then you might, I don't know, put a post on Teams or Workplace, or I don't know, all these other channels you've got. You might use a Learnfluencer. You'll use a multitude of channels to share one unifying, consistent message. And no, that doesn't mean you have to use the same words everywhere, but the same gist. If you want your people to do something, you have to get that message out to them consistently. Let's look at an example from the external world. Share a Coke is one of the best marketing campaigns that was ever completed. They didn't just start putting names on bottles, did they? We would have got the gist eventually. If you drink Coke enough, you go, oh, wait, that one's got a name on it, and that one's got a name on it. And okay, they're doing something here. But what else did they do? They put up billboards. They put adverts in bus stops. They put adverts on the side of buses. They put adverts on the telly. They probably did some remarketing and had adverts across the internet. They are sending out that message in multiple ways to keep themselves front of mind. And that's what you need to be doing with your learning campaigns. And the fifth and final tip from our most listened to podcast is to complete a value proposition canvas. Value proposition canvases aren't a marketing tool per se, but marketers use them a lot. But often they're used in like business accelerators or for startups to get a real holistic view of what's going on in an organization. And we can absolutely use them in L&D to understand what we're doing. What's the lay of the land? What are we offering to our people and what do our people want? On the one half of your value proposition canvas, it's all about your product. And for you guys, your product might be your LMS, if that's what you're focusing on, or your e-learning courses, or it might be your entire L&D function. What you decide your product is completely up to you. I would hugely recommend that it's your entire offering. What you are offering to people is your product. We look and we start to introspect a bit here. We need to think about the experience of our product. We need to think about the features of our product. We don't recommend a featured-led marketing approach here at Mass. Understanding the features is super important to making sure your marketing is representative of what you're offering. You also need to think about the benefits. What's great about your product? What makes your product unique? And trust me, you have got competition. Google and YouTube do exist. And then on the other side of your value proposition canvas, you want to be thinking about your people. What are their goals? What are their wants? What do they need from you? What are their fears and pain points? Once you've filled in the entire canvas, you have a real clear view of what you're offering versus what your people want and how the two pair together. It's a fantastic tool for L&D and really helps us get a grips with what we're actually doing here. So there you have it, the top 5 takeaways from our most listened to podcasts of 2022. I hope you found this podcast useful and we will be back next week, I promise, with some fresh new content for your ear holes. But in the meantime, if you have any queries, questions, podcast recommendations, things you want us to talk about, grab us on LinkedIn. You know we're always happy to talk to you guys. See you on the next one.